Chapter 1446. In the starry sky, Yi Xian was stunned. He really did not expect his bloodline power to be able to suppress this violent power. It seemed that his bloodline had many functions. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and continued to cultivate absolute Fentian. Since he could use his bloodline to suppress it, it meant that he could control the power of absolute Fentian. If that was the case, it would be much easier. Boundless Sacred Land. Boundless Sacred Land was located in Boundless Star Region. This star region was a bit special because it was different from other places. This place cultivated the power of faith. In Boundless Sacred Land there were hundreds of super empires. These hundreds of super empires were all subsidiary countries of the Sacred Land. Faith in the Sacred Land. What was different from doubting was that the faith here was completely enslaved. From birth, people were instilled to believe in the Sacred Land and to go through fire and water for the Sacred Land. Here the Sacred Land was God. An inviolable God. On this day, a man came to Boundless Star Region. This person was the head of the Taoist faction, Wen Tianyu. Just as Wen Tianyu stepped into Boundless Star Region, a golden light suddenly appeared in front of him. The golden light dissipated and an old man wearing a golden robe appeared in front of Wen Tianyu. Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "Master Bai Xiu, long time no see. How have you been?" Master Bai Xiu slightly bowed. "Head Wen, long time no see. Compared to back then, you have become even stronger." Wen Tianyu shook his head and smiled. "Master must be joking." Master Bai Xiu looked at Wen Tianyu. "Are you here for the fifth dimension's Yi Xian?" Wen Tianyu nodded. Master Bai Xiu shook his head. "This matter is not something that you and I can decide." Wen Tianyu smiled and said, "I represent the Taoist faction." Master Bai Xiu glanced at Wen Tianyu. "The Taoist faction's 4 sages, do you represent 4? Wen Tianyu was silent. Master Bai Xiu smiled and said, "It seems that Head Wen only represents the Taoist faction's Earth Gate." The Taoist faction's 4 sages had their own legacies. They were Heaven Gate, Earth Gate, Shen Gate and Human Gate. Among them, Second Elder Tao was the Earth Gate's ancestor. Wen Tianyu smiled. "Even if I only represent Earth's Gate, isn't that enough?" Master Bishu shook his head. Court Head Wen, the white-robed woman, shattered the dark abyss with a single punch. A consolidation realm expert is like an ant in front of her. Moreover, we still don't know how strong she is. Do you think it's enough? Wen Tianyu shook his head and smiled. "Since that's the case, then the Holy Land can just wait. Wait for the rise of this young Master Yi." After saying this, he turned around and left. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and turned around to look at Master Bai Xiu. "Master, you should really go to the 5th dimension to take a look at the power of faith there. I believe that Master will definitely be very surprised." Furthermore, Yi Xian was personally chosen by Master Qing. He would definitely save that Master Qing in the future. At that time, what would the Holy Lands do? Surrender? Ah. With that, he turned around and left. The Master of Baisu was silent. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded above Wen Tianyu's head. "Where's second brother Dao?" Hearing this, the Master of Cultivation's expression changed, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. This was because the person who spoke was the Holy Land's holy leader. Wen Tianyu also bowed slightly. Towards this mysterious holy leader, he did not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. Wen Tianyu was about to speak, but at this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared in the sky behind him. Second brother Dao. Following the appearance of second brother Dao, a middle-aged man wearing a white robe appeared above the Master of Baisu. Holy leader. Both of them had appeared. The holy leader looked at second brother Dao. "You've seen that woman?" Second brother Dao nodded. The holy leader asked, "What realm?" Second brother Dao shook his head. "I don't know." The holy leader frowned. "I don't know?" Second brother Dao nodded. The holy leader's expression was calm. No one knew what he was thinking. Second brother Dao looked at the holy leader. "The price of killing these 2 people is too great. If we don't kill them, the price will be even greater." The holy leader was expressionless. "If we don't kill them, what's the price?" Second brother Dao smiled. "First, let's talk about the price of my Dao faction. He has already obtained the 9 scrolls of Dao scriptures. Once he comprehends the 9 scrolls of Dao scriptures, his strength will undergo an earth-shattering change. Most importantly, it is very likely that he will awaken the spirit of Dao and become the master of our Dao faction." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. "If he is personally chosen by Master, I have nothing to say. However, he is not. Moreover, the people behind him are all Dao-defying cultivators. It is obvious that he is not on the same path as our Dao faction. Therefore, we will not let him become the master of our Dao faction. Moreover, we will not let him grasp the spirit of Tao. The holy leader looked at second brother Tao. You. 2 or 3. Or 4. Second brother Tao smiled. Fourth junior brother and I have reached a consensus. As for third junior sister, she has been wandering outside all year round. We do not know where she is now. As for eldest senior brother, he has become obsessed with that Tao faction. He basically does not care about anything. Therefore, fourth junior brother and I are in charge of the Tao faction now. The holy leader said softly, "Tell us about our sacred grounds loss." Second brother Tao laughed. Holy leader, why do you ask when you already know the answer? The holy leader looked at second brother. I want to hear it. Second brother Tao looked straight at the holy leader. He will subvert the sacred grounds power of faith. Am I right? The holy leader was silent. Second brother Tao continued, moreover, he is the person chosen by Master Qing. Holy leader, do you dare to let Master Qing and her great Tao guardians come out? I think you definitely do not dare. Back then, Master Qing almost subverted your boundless sacred ground. Now there is another Yishan. The holy leader said softly, second brother Tao, Yishan is not like Master Qing. We will have to pay a huge price to deal with two women who are not in the same realm. Most importantly, we do not know how many people are behind him. Second brother Tao said softly, currently we know that the white-robed woman, Sidu Tingyun, the netherworld hall in the four-dimensional universe, and a woman in a plain dress who is his Tao guardian. These people had once appeared to help him. The holy leader said, who is the easiest to kill? Second brother Tao said after a moment of silence, it might be that woman in a plain dress. The holy leader asked, why do you think so? Second brother Tao said, I have investigated this person. Her true strength has always been a mystery. However, the fifth dimension's Tendo, Munyenyen, said that she has a 50% chance of defeating the woman in a plain dress. Moreover, she said this more than once. The holy leader frowned. 50% chance? Second brother Tao nodded. The fifth dimension's Tendo has said more than once that she has a 50% chance of defeating the woman in a plain dress. An expert of her level should not speak carelessly. Moreover, this time, when the fifth dimension and Yishan are in danger, this woman in a plain dress did not appear. Why did she not appear? There are two possibilities. The first is that she does not know that the fifth dimension and Yishan are in danger. However, this possibility is extremely small. The second possibility is that her strength is not enough to deal with the crisis of the fifth dimension and Yishan. Therefore, she does not dare to come. Based on this, among the people behind Yishan, this woman in a plain dress is the easiest to kill. The holy leader was silent. Second brother Tao continued, there is one more thing. Previously, I asked the doubting Taoist ancestor to search for this woman in a plain dress. Although the Taoist ancestor is dead, before he died, he told me that the woman in a plain dress is not that strong. In other words, it is very likely that he died after fighting with the woman in a plain dress. If this is the case, then it is as he said. The woman in a plain dress is not that strong. The holy leader looked at second brother Tao. You want to attack the woman in a plain dress first? Second brother Tao nodded. The best way to deal with these women is to kill them one by one. The holy leader frowned. Kill them one by one? Second brother Tao smiled. Qing He was stunned when he heard Wen Tianyu, and then he said, what do you mean by that? Wen Tianyu looked at Qing He. Retreat. With that he turned around and left. At this moment, Wen Tianyu's expression was extremely solemn. To be exact, he was a little nervous. The instant he saw her, he knew that she wasn't an ordinary person. This was a conspiracy. Therefore he decisively chose to leave. However, it was a little too late. A wisp of sword light had pierced through his glabella. It was completely silent. When Tianyu stood rooted to the ground, his eyes glazed over. When did she use her sword? He didn't know. He only knew that he was dead. On the other hand, Qing He and the others were stunned. When Tianyu is dead? As if he'd thought of something, Qing He turned around to look at the woman in a plain dress, and his voice trembled as he said, it's you? The woman glanced at Qing He. How boring. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. Qing He was about to speak when the heads of over a dozen experts flew into the air. The heads of more than a dozen experts flew out one after another. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. It was extremely bloody. Qing He was slightly stunned. In next to no time, he covered his neck with both hands because his throat had suddenly split open and blood sprayed out. Qing He was horrified and his soul was about to flee. At his level, even if his body was destroyed so long as his soul remained, then he could be reborn. However, when his soul was about to flee, he noticed to his astonishment that his soul was gradually vanishing. He stood on the spot. He knew that he was dead. His soul had been obliterated. He raised his head to look at the woman in a plain dress. Is it fun to act weak? In the distance, the woman didn't even turn around. She felt that she was wasting time. Such a weak person shouldn't be a threat to her brother. Let him play by himself. In the battlefield, he wanted to inform his second brother before he died, but he was powerless to do so. Right now he only had a sliver of consciousness. His soul and body had been erased. This sliver of consciousness had no roots, so it had no meaning. Moreover, this sliver of consciousness was also vanishing. That sword had directly erased everything he had. Tens of thousands of years of cultivation, gone in an instant. In the distance, the woman in a plain dress had already stepped into the Beastman world. The moment she stepped into the Beastman world, a voice suddenly sounded from the distant starry sky. Human, this is the Beastman world. The woman didn't stop and continued to walk into the distance. At this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared not far away from the woman in a plain dress. The shadow gradually solidified and soon, an expert with the face of a beast appeared in front of the woman in a plain dress. This Beastman expert looked at the woman in a plain dress. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Then let's go with the Fortune Divine Crystals." In Miss Lan Rua's opinion, how many Fortune Divine Crystals can the contents of the 8th scripture be sold for? Lan Rua looked at Yi Xian. A priceless treasure that can't be estimated. Yi Xian smiled and said, "There shouldn't be anyone coming to snatch it, right?" Lan Rua smiled and said, "You can rest assured in Xian City unless all the experts from the Dao sects rush here." Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Lan Rua this time." Lan Rua smiled and said, "You're welcome." At this moment an old man walked in and bowed slightly. "City Lord, everything is ready." Lan Rua looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, let's go." Yi Xian nodded and said, "All right." Under Lan Rua's lead, Yi Xian arrived at the auction site. Yi Xian scanned the area and realized that there were very few people around. There were only a few dozen of them. Lan Rua smiled and said, "We've done a screening. After all, there are only a few powerful forces." Yi Xian nodded and said, "All right." Lan Rua pointed to the round stage in the distance and said, "Young Master Yi, are you going to do it yourself or do you want one of us to do it?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'll do it." With that, he appeared on the round stage. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and noticed that the weakest amongst them was at the consolidation realm. Besides that, there were a few extremely powerful auras. He even saw 3 familiar faces. Nanyu Xiu, Nanyu Echi and Nanyu Eching. The Nanyu clan. When he saw Yi Xian look over, Nanyu Xiu smiled as a greeting. Yi Xian cupped his fists and looked around. "Everyone, I won't waste my breath. Let's get straight to the point." As he spoke, he opened his palm and an ancient scroll appeared in his hand. The contents of the 8th Taoist scripture. The starting price? He hesitated for a moment and looked at Lan Rua. Lan Rua smiled and raised a finger. Yi Xian immediately said, "The starting price is 10 million fortune crystals." Lan Rua was stunned when he heard this and everyone else was stunned as well. 10 million fortune crystals? The silence was terrifying. The atmosphere was very strange. Yi Xian gazed at Lan Rua. Lan Rua hesitated for a moment and then he said via voice transmission, "I mean 1 billion, 1 billion. Yi Xian's face froze. He realized that he seemed to have underestimated this scripture. Lan Rua continued, "This scripture is a precious treasure of the Taoist path, and it's even the 8th volume. Its value can't be measured with money. Actually, a bit of 1 billion is too little." Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. He was a little embarrassed. Lan Rua rolled his eyes at Yi Xian and then he shouted, 100 million, 100 million. The atmosphere instantly returned to normal when Lan Rua from Xuanqing made a bid.